Uno? Roll it.
Roll it.
Episode what? 62, I think.
62.
Right? 62.
Welcome back to the Volley House podcast. We are back at Colca Studios.
In the studio.
Ryan Mackey's back on the sticks. Be sure to give him a follow at Max_visuals. Follow us on everything. DM us to ask us questions and send in stories or videos you'd like us to review. And don't forget to subscribe to our channels on YouTube and Spotify.
Max. Like
yes.
Fire Apparatus.
What? How did you
Mac.
spell it last time?
Mackey.
Yeah, it's Max, MACKS _visuals. So
It was like Mickey Mouse, right? Max. MICKEYMOUSE.
you already pulled this shit.
I know I did.
Let's not go there.
Mold.
Yeah, Kevin
Yeah.
still watches Disney Channel.
Disney Channel. I do like that movie, Monsters Inc. It was pretty cool.
Yeah, you kind of look like Mike Wazowski.
Mike Wazowski. There's a guy by that name somewhere in the fire service, Mike Wazowski.
It sounds familiar, yeah.
Pretty wild.
So what's it been?
Am I too close to this mic? It feels like it's far away. Is it okay?
It's better off.
You're going to hear me anyway. I'm loud.
What's it been? 3 weeks almost since we've been in here?
Yeah, because we did the one from home last week.
Yeah, that was a fucking nightmare. Really needed you there for that one.
Tyler
Ryan.
doesn't know how YouTube videos
No, there
work.
is nothing worse than Kevin when you're trying to figure out a technical issue, and Kevin just sitting there, I thought you were supposed to know this shit.
You're supposed to be a
fucking
tech
idiot.
guy.
Blah, blah. You're supposed to be a tech guy.
You're supposed to be a tech guy. That's what you told me. You're a tech guy.
I can't wait until they make like a where you can slap someone virtually, because that's I would have just hit, I would have hit the button. That's what I would have done. I'm like sitting there trying to focus. I'm all pissed off, trying to get something to work, and just Kevin's just chirping me in the back. But all good. I think
It went well.
yeah, it went well.
I'll just send you better videos.
Yeah, that would help.
We got some followers that have some good video footage stuff that we can use.
Perfect. Well, now that we're back in studio, let's get into the normal grind. And we will start with our friends over at Boots and Briskets Soap Company.
My skin's nice.
Yeah.
I just showered up. I smell good.
Nice. This episode is proudly sponsored by Boots and Briskets Soap Company, a veteran-owned American small business that understands the importance of starting with the basics to keep your family healthy. Their tallow soaps are crafted with a short, honest ingredient list, no lengthy chemical names, no dyes, no nonsense, just traditional soap that respects your skin and your values. Stock up for your home at bnbsoapco.com and use code VOLLEY10 for 10% off. Active duty, veterans, and first responders can also verify through Verify Pass to receive 15% off once verified. And we mentioned this on the last show. You can combine the two.
It's awesome.
Yeah.
Love it.
Real good stuff out of Boots and Briskets.
Nice discount out of it.
Let's get into Department of the Week fundraiser. So we understand that some departments out there are hurting for donations and funds, so we created this program. Our goal is to raise money by selling fire department t-shirts on our website, where net proceeds will be sent back to the department at the end of each month. By using our platform, you'll be able to reach more people outside your area, and this is a great opportunity for us firefighters to support one another, while also adding to your collection of fire department merch. So if you want some more information on how to get your department involved, send us a message on social media or send us an email, info@volleyhousepodcast.com. And that's VOLLY. For some reason, people have been spelling it VOLLEY.
I've seen a couple of those
Yeah.
emails.
And I'm like, did I fuck that up? Is that like how it's supposed to be spelled?
I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah, nice. So anyway, this week's Firehouse of the Week is Lakeland Fire Department, Station 2 on Long Island, New York. And a quick bio about them. If this thing wants to load.
They just got a new firehouse. Their headquarters was rebuilt.
Oh, yeah?
They tore the old one down, built a new one. It's pretty nice. I got to get over there, check it out.
Well, this is their Station 2, located on Motor Parkway in Ronkonkoma, New York. Lakeland Fire Department Station 2 proudly protects the northern end of the Lakeland Fire District, earning the nickname the Northern Express. Station 2 is home to Engine 4, Rescue 6, and Brush 14. Our station is proudly dedicated to ex-Chief/Commissioner John P. Napolitano, FDNY Rescue 2, and ex-Captain William J. Mahoney, FDNY Rescue 4, who both made the ultimate sacrifice on September 11, 2001. With Station 2 serving as the home engine of Engine 4, originally assigned to Engine Company 4 prior to establishment of Station 2, we chose to honor our history with a throwback apparel design. The concept features an updated version of the original Engine Company 4 patch, paired with the company nickname Fighting Irish, paying tribute to our roots while giving it a modern edge. So
for those that don't know where Lakeland is actually in Ronkonkoma, or Lake Ronkonkoma. Mm-hmm. And there's a Ronkonkoma Fire Department as well. So you have Ronkonkoma Fire Department and Lakeland Fire Department.
Classic Long Island.
And Ronkonkoma Fire Department is the Lake Grove Fire District.
Yeah, that's
which
right.
is pretty wild.
Yeah, and doesn't Lake Grove get split with Wisconsin too? I think by the mall over there, right?
Lake Grove, yeah, but not
not
Lakeland.
Right,
You're talking
right,
about Lakeland. You're talking about something totally different.
Did I say Lakeland?
But Lakeland has Ronkonkoma Lake.
Yeah, let's not get confusing here.
It is confusing. It's like Terryville. Terryville is in Port Jeff Station. There's no town Terryville.
I know it's
pretty wild.
And also just a quick ad for Lakeland Station 2. They have a cigar and steak night, which is Saturday, June 13th from 5 to 9. So, if you're on the island or...
Come on out.
Yeah. It's nothing better than a cigar
I saw
and
somebody
steak
else
night.
had one, too, on the island. Who else had one? I know a bunch of departments do. You know, if you go further out east, they have, like, the game nights with the game foods. Mm-hmm. I want to say CI, maybe? Has a cigar night, too? Coming up?
I don't know.
I don't know. I just know there's a few. I know Bethpage does one. It's got, a lot of departments do these fundraisers, either cigar nights,
Cigar nights are
running
great.
at races, and all sorts of stuff.
Yeah.
Casino nights and parade season and drill teams coming up.
Yes.
That's got to be a whole big topic one day.
Yeah, we'll get out there this
I think
year.
beginning of June that starts up.
Yeah, we got to get it because we were going to go last year, and we just got caught up. But we'll get out there this year. Let's get into 1-800-BOARD-UP. 1-800-BOARD-UP is the nationwide leader in securing structures and providing victim assistance, backed by Belfor, the largest disaster restoration company in the world. When the tones drop and you roll out the door, you're there for your community. But when the fire's out and the rigs are back in quarters, families are still standing in the street trying to figure out what comes next. That's where 1-800-BOARD-UP, a Belfor company, comes in. Staffed by retired first responders, our teams understand the fire service and respond when requested to secure properties, prevent further damage, and help protect residents during those first critical hours. It's about doing things the right way and supporting the communities you serve. 1-800-BOARD-UP and Belfor, backing the fire service beyond the fire ground. And also Ultra Bright Lights. Ultra Bright Lights is the trusted source for volunteer firefighter emergency lighting. When that call drops, every second matters. Whether you're responding in your personal vehicle or outfitting department apparatus, Ultra Bright Lights has the high-performance lights, sirens, and flashers you need to stay visible and get there safely. Their gear is built for reliability, built for responders, and priced with volunteers in mind. Head to ultrabrightlights.com, that's lights with a Z, and use promo code VOLLEYHOUSE at checkout to get 10% off your order. Subject to terms and conditions at ultrabrightlights.com. Ultra Bright Lights is there when your community needs you most. All right.
Light me up.
Let's get into Job of the Week.
Job of the week.
got-
Engine 79. A lot of 37 in the Bronx.
Oh,
They had a fire in their firehouse.
yeah. Wild video.
Crazy stuff, man. They might need 1-800-BOARD up there.
Yeah.
Yeah, the members, FDNY, I think one firefighter got burned. But fire started either at the rig or on the rig. I'm not totally sure yet where it started, but the members were upstairs. It was early in the morning, and they were trapped on the second floor because the engine was on fire right next to the staircase, and it was going right up the staircase.
Did they?
There's no sprinklers in city firehouses and the older ones, and
How
no
old
fire
was that
escapes.
that building? Do you know?
It's old.
Yeah.
It's definitely an older
And how many apparatuses in there?
You got the engine, the truck, and a battalion.
Oh wow.
Yeah, so the house watch was downstairs, heard some sort of explosion, a popping sound, told the members upstairs to kind of stay in place, and then they called it in.
Damn.
Yeah, crazy. Glad everybody's all right. And,
Yeah, absolutely.
If I think there was one member that got burned, but
I saw
I'm
the
not
video
positive,
of them
Yeah,
coming out
bailing out
the
the
door
ladders,
on
yeah.
the ladders, and it looked like it was smoky up there already.
Oh yeah, yeah.
That
I had
was
some
going
smoke
no
in the
joke.
building,
Yeah. Yeah. So definitely good.
So God bless. Hopefully everybody's okay. But listen, we have fires in firehouses, and nowadays, and I don't know what cause. I don't know what the cause is. I won't speculate. But it did start on a rig. We do have a lot of batteries, lithium-ion batteries, and everything else of chargers. Radio chargers, flashlight chargers. You name it. Meters. Monitors, suction units. We had a suction unit on my rig years ago in the city that went on fire in the compartment. It just shorted out and went on fire.
Oh, okay.
So these things do happen. It's something that we have to be cognizant of, and we should have smoke detectors in the firehouses and CO alarms and stuff like that, and hopefully sprinklers. But
Yeah.
it's just it's terrible. But there's been a bunch of fires around, even on the island and everywhere.
Yeah, I'm
So,
going to give a shout out to Huntington Manor Fire Department. So I got some info on their fire. On Wednesday, the 25th at 3:05 p.m., they received a call for a bedroom fire with an occupant trapped. County dispatch was on the phone with the occupant and confirming. The first due crew was on scene within minutes and found the victim in the front bedroom, 1-4 corner, and the victim was awake and breathing on the way to the hospital.
Wow, nice
13 minutes from time of activation to victim removal.
Wow,
And that's
that's
at
good.
3 o'clock in the afternoon on a Wednesday.
Nice.
That's a great response.
You
out
got
of
it.
them.
You got to turn out. I mean,
Yeah.
listen. The quicker we get to victims, the quicker we get to people trapped, we're going to save their lives. So,
Yeah. So big shout out to those guys.
Oh, great job.
Well done.
Yeah, there's been a bunch around though. I mean, I've left
There was
and right.
there was like 5
They
today.
just had one out in Riverhead. There was a barn or something. I think it was Wells Farm or something. They had a fire there like last year too. I think.
Yeah, that name sounds familiar.
Yeah. I think it was Wells Farm.
Nassau
Sound
County
Avenue.
had like
There was
3
one
or
in
4 today.
Floral Park. There was one today.
Yeah.
I think. I forget who else. There were a few.
Lindenhurst.
Lindenhurst had a job. Deck fire in the rear that got
Yep.
into the house.
Yeah, so they were saying
I
that
think West Babylon, North Lindy, and Lindy.
PD got it as a house fire,
Mm-hmm.
but it got dispatched as smoke in the area originally.
Who knows?
Yeah.
Yeah, there's been a bunch, and there were a couple police officers, along with a volunteer that saved a kid's life. What was that, last week? Within the last week?
Was that Dix Hills?
I think so.
Yeah, that was like
Saved a 9-year-old or
maybe like
something.
2 weeks ago. Yeah.
I think it was only like last week or whatever. But yeah, there's been a lot of fires around it. But the quicker we get on scene and the quicker we get into these buildings, the quicker we're going to save people.
Absolutely.
And I know we talked a little bit about the victim survivability profile.
Yeah.
That's a little clip that we're putting out
That'll be out
tonight, probably, right?
that'll be out tonight, but by the time you're watching this, it'll be out already.
be out,
So
but,
that video is titled "Are Firefighters Giving Up on Search Based on Size Up?"
Yeah, and we shouldn't be giving up on search at all.
Right.
And that's the big thing. We wear gear. We have protection. We have SCBA, even if you don't have a line, but you should be taking a line if you can. But there's no reason why we can't get into these buildings and search. And, victims, civilians that are out there, right, they have no protective clothing. They have no SCBA. And we shouldn't be waiting. We should be getting into these buildings and getting people out as fast as possible. And the quicker, the better.
Yeah.
So, I don't like that whole survivability profile. I never have.
Yeah, well,
And
that's why we did a whole.
watch the clip. You'll see
Yeah.
what we talked about. But yeah, so quick response, and you can see they got out quick. They got on scene within 13 minutes. They had the victim out, which is good. You want to get that time, that number down as best as possible.
Yeah, I mean, from time of activation to the time that they got the victim out, I think that's pretty solid for that time of day. Is pretty solid.
Yeah. And traffic and everything else is ridiculous.
Yeah, especially over there. Let's get into our topic submissions.
What do you got for me?
The first one, Force Entry Tools and Tactics.
Tools and tactics. Well,
I think you can you could force entry with anything if you're brave enough.
yes and no.
I locked myself in a bathroom one time with no phone, and it was just the lock was jammed up. Trying to get out of it,
What were you
not
doing in
working.
there?
Don't worry about what I was doing in there. And I was like, "Oh shit, I can't call anybody, and I'm gonna have to kick this door down." And I'm just looking around, and I picked up a nail clipper, and I was able to force my way out of that without breaking the whole door down.
You'd be surprised what you can do, right?
Yeah.
Credit cards, pieces of plastic.
I got a guy out of a bathroom
Plastic.
stall one time with a credit card. And the guy was standing there. He wasn't like saying anything, but I could see that he was like waiting for somebody to help him. So I just took out the credit card and just wedged it in there and jiggled it a little
You
bit.
like
and
hanging out
finally
in
got
bathrooms, huh?
Yeah, it's always bathrooms, right?
What's up with you? Yeah, there's a lot of really cool techniques, there's tools, and it really comes down to technique and understanding what you're trying to accomplish. And once you can understand, if you really understand locks and locking mechanisms and the way hinges work or the way doors swing, you can kind of figure everything out. So
Let me ask you something. Do you guys in your department train on picking locks?
not picking locks, no, but
You don't have like the little tools, the lock pick tool?
we have tools like a K tool and stuff like that to do.
But you don't have like the little ones to try and...
manipulate the
'Cause
tumblers
I
and
trained
stuff.
on that once.
We don't pick locks.
I get that, but
There's a
that
lot
was
of other ways
something
to
we
get around
actually
it.
trained on.
Yeah, there's other ways I can get around it.
Yeah, so,
I'm not going to waste time with that.
well, one thing...
I'll take the whole cylinder off, the knob off. There's a million ways to do it.
So Kevin and I, we were trying to do a video where we watched Chicago Fire, like a clip from Chicago Fire,
Yeah, you
and
screwed that
it
all
just
up.
I didn't screw it up. It was
screwed it
I'm
up.
trying to fucking figure it out on the go while you're screaming at
Ryan,
me.
I
the
need a
entire time.
real producer.
Yeah.
Not this guy.
So we were watching that episode, and the one guy went and tried forcing open that outward swinging industrial door with a Halligan by himself, and just
Well, there's
he really put in,
6 other guys standing there.
Yeah, there's like a whole crew of guys standing there watching him.
They got to make it look dramatic, right?
Yeah.
It's got to be dramatic.
But it was just, he really just, used all his strength and bam, got that door open, got those people out there. But when
then they walked past the fire.
the fire was just everywhere in the building.
It's great.
But yeah, to your point, the technique, especially when it comes to, say, a Halligan, because if you think of the history of the Halligan, basically FDNY used crowbars before, or the Kelly tool, I think it
Well,
was.
you had-
The Kelly, what
you
is
had
it
a lot of
called?
different tools. You had the claw tool was the big
claw tool. Yeah. And then it was Hugh Halligan came up.
He took a few tools and kind of mixed them together
Right.
and made it.
And the whole
Halligan.
idea of that, because sometimes you see it where guys, they'll go to the prop, Force Entry prop, and they'll start messing around with it. And when you look at a Halligan at first and you go to force a door, sometimes your brain is like, oh, I can do it this way. It should work. But in reality, there's the way the tool is set up is to create a fulcrum almost at certain points of the tool.
Yeah, well, you're
to open it
creating
up.
mechanical advantage, right? So you can turn that into a 15-to-1 mechanical advantage if you really want to. And there's a lot of techniques to do it. You can put 2 Halligans together. You can put a Halligan and a hook together. There's so many different things. And then, how the Halligan, it gets really into maintenance of your tools too, right? If your edges on your Halligan are sheared off or broken on edges and stuff like that, like that's all areas that can grab into the door handles or the door frame to give you that that movement. So, a lot of it's technique, a lot of it is maintenance of your tools as well. So it's understanding the tool and what you can actually do with it. So, we could talk for 8 hours on forcible entry and different ways to do it. Sometimes it's a Halligan, sometimes it's not, right? I can use an axe. Some people like to use mauls and all these other different tools that are out there. But, tried and true Halligan and an 8-pound axe and an 8-pound Halligan basically work very well together.
Yeah.
And I know some people try to carry a 6-pound axe, and you got to give that much more force to that axe to make that Halligan work.
Which is a bigger swing, wind up crushing someone's
Yeah, so
thumb.
there's a lot to it, and then you can use the axe as a wedge to a certain extent,
Mm-hmm.
and you can do things. So there's so many different techniques.
That's the axe with the wedge. Using an axe as a wedge is one of those. I'm the only guy at the door with a set of irons.
Well,
things
you
that
should
works
carry a
great.
wedge yourself, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I carry 4 chocks. I have 3 in one pocket. I have 1 in another. I always carry 4. And it's just, most of the time, in the city, I was a boss. So I got to chock doors going in, or the stairwell door or something like that. So I always had chocks, and I always carried 1 chock was heavy wood. It was usually oak. I made it out of a pallet or something like that. The other ones were pine, but I had 1 heavy duty in case I needed it for forcible entry. I could stick that in the door and I can knock the crap out of it. It's not going to come apart where
Right.
pine will snap. So there's metal wedges you can buy nowadays. There's ways to control the door using, rope webbing and everything else. There's a lot to that. But when you're doing this forcible entry drills on these doors that are out there, and I don't care what door you use, they're all very, very similar, right? It's a very hard frame of steel, and it's a very hard steel door. And, there are some where you can mimic and put, a wood door there or a regular door onto it, depending on which ones you're using, which gives it a little flex, all right? But the frame isn't going to move. In some buildings, frames don't move. Sometimes they do move, depending on what it's into, right? What is the wall made of? And I tell people all the time, right? Try before you pry. We've always talked about that. And sometimes the easiest method is just to go through the wall next to it. So,
Yeah.
for instance, we were in a commercial building one day, and these guys are beating the shit out of a door. And I'm like, what are you doing? They're like, we got to get in here. And I took my Halligan, I stuck it right through the wall. I reached in, I unlocked the door. I mean,
Yeah,
this
that's-
sheetrock is easier.
Right.
You're inside a commercial building. Why are they beating the shit out of this solid wood door, that has locks on it? So, sometimes you got to think. Even a window sometimes, and not that you always want to knock a window out because, the air and oxygen getting in there, some change in flow path maybe. But there's sometimes where that is the best avenue. We had some doors where I worked. There's no hinges on the door. The hinges are actually into the frame. So when you look at the door from either side, it looks the same. And, we were trying to figure out, what's the best avenue, but it had 3 pins that went up into the ceiling, into the top of the jam, 3 pins into the floor, 3 pins into the side, 3 pins into all the way around this thing when it locked.
What was the locking mechanism on the other side?
It was
it
just
kinda
the
like
door
in the
handle.
center?
Nope.
No?
It was off to the side. But
Really?
So it had a regular latch and then it had all these pins, right? It's these high security doors that are out there. And we went there when the building was being built. We took apart the locking mechanism to see how it all worked and functioned. And we're like, wow, this thing is pretty tricky. How are you going to get
Sounds
past
like
this?
it, yeah.
And the solution we came up with was we were going to cut 4 inches in past the door handle straight from top to bottom. And that should give us enough to get past those 3 pins at the top. So the pins are on the other side. We should be able to open the door. Or, best case scenario, climb over the railing, take out the bay window, and pop in through the front window. But this is what we're dealing with now. Security is changing, right? Firefighting is changing daily. Security is changing daily, right? Everything we do, just like cars, car accidents, car fires, their cars are changing daily. So we have to be on top of our game as best as possible. We're never going to know everything, but thinking and using your brain, the best tool we have on the fire ground is your brain, is to think about it and how can I accomplish this mission?
Right.
So forcible entry, right, it can get very severe. It can go simple, Halligan and axe, to rabbit tools, bunny tools, hydraulic tools. It can get into crazy shit. K tool, right? Going through the lock method.
I love the K tool.
And I love it. I can use it very well. A pair of vice grips sometimes. I can take a locking mechanism off and I can go right through the door. I could pull a door handle off sometimes and pop through that way. There's a lot of different ways I can skin a cat. It's just you have to constantly be thinking about what's the next avenue. And that avenue may be a saw.
Yeah.
It just may be.
For sure. Yeah, the K tool, there's something like, what's the word I'm looking for? Like soothing about the way a K tool rips the freaking bolt out of the door.
If you do it right.
I love the way, it's like pulling a loose tooth out.
But you can do that with a pair of vice grips. Put a pair of vice grips on and
I
just
know, but
spin
it's
that
just,
thing out.
you slide the K tool,
I know,
just
it pops
tap
it right out.
down, throw the Halligan in, just pulls it
You
right
know,
out.
and then there's a lot of other tools out there, right? I can't remember the name of the company, but it's like those firefighting tools. But he's got a plastic piece. It's a plastic sleeve, a pick tool. God, I can't remember his name. He's a city fireman too, but firefighter swipe tool. Firefighter swipe tool.
Yeah.
That thing is awesome. I have 2 of those. I keep one in my coat pocket and keep one in my car. I never know when I'm going to need this thing, but it works. So my hat's off to him.
Well,
I got to say it works. He's not a sponsor, but I got to say,
No,
that swipe tool, I've
listen.
gotten past a lot of doors. You know, like I told you, I do school security. Sometimes I'm in there and just popping doors just to practice with it. It's great. And even the
they're
pick
wondering
tool.
why all the doors are fucked up.
Well,
in
I have
school.
access to everything anyway. No, it doesn't break it. But that firefighting swipe tool, I'm telling you, check it out. Tell them Volley House Podcast sent you.
Yeah.
Kevin sent you. But no, really, phenomenal tool. And it's easy. It's light to carry in your pocket. Like I said, I keep one in my car. I keep one in my turnout coat. And it's a great tool because you can't get into your house. You can get into your house with it. Like, I mean,
Right.
literally, unless you have deadbolts and shit. But
Well, speaking of forcible entry tools and some of the stuff that's out there, all hands fire equipment and training
he's got it all.
is your source for Firehooks Unlimited, Leatherhead tools, and Council tools. In addition to that, they offer training on forcible entry tactics, as well as many other classes. All Hands has recently been awarded their 5th Sourcewell contract, which happens to be public safety and training. From top-tier gear to hands-on training with their team of more than 60 instructors, get the best tools for the toughest job. Visit allhandsfire.com or allhandsfiretraining.com to learn more.
Yep.
And
he
yeah, they
gets
got
a lot of
everything.
Yeah, he gets a lot of stuff from Bob Farrell. Bob was a captain at 31 Truck back in the heyday. He owns Firehooks Unlimited. But all the tools that we buy are pretty much through them, you know,
Yeah.
through Firehooks Unlimited or through Don. But Bob makes some tremendous tools. But you can buy the Halligans, your Axes, and your New York roof hooks, everything.
Yeah.
Good stuff.
The next topic, the importance of proper pump training and how your readiness directly affects the hose team inside.
Yes. Pumping is pumping a water supply in particular is one of those big things that everybody should understand, but you really need to master it, right? You should master problems and situations and how to fix them,
Yeah.
okay? And a lot of the times when you see pumping problems, it's not the rig, it's operator error, right? Once again, it comes back to the brain. You got to think. And there's shortcut math. There's a lot of different ways to skin a cat, but you should really understand it. The most important thing we do on the fire ground is getting water.
That's the next thing.
What's that?
That's actually the next topic.
Oh, is it? Well, it is. So, you know, I'm a big believer in water. I mean, the UL studies are there to say that we can put out a 1 to 2 bedroom residential structure fire with 300 gallons or less, which is great. And a lot of us carrying, right, Class A pumper is a minimum of 500 gallons. Many of us 750.
Yeah.
Some of these rural departments, 1,000 gallons a minute. So if you get there quick enough, when the fire is just progressing, you should be able to knock it down and then some with 1 tank of water if you do it right. And that's flow and go. And what I mean by flow and go is opening the line at the front door, fighting the fire all the way to the bedroom, and putting it out. Flow and go, you should be able to do it with 300 gallons or less. So, when you look at nozzles and nozzle reaction, hose, and everything else, right? You're pumping anywhere to give you 150 to 180 gallons a minute on an inch 3/4 line. So we're flowing a decent amount of water. So you think about that. That's 2 to 3 minutes of operations from the front door to knock that fire down, which you should be able to do, right? You shouldn't have to shut the line down. You should be able to progress quickly to the fire and knock it down as fast as possible. So that's where the important factor is. And I see a lot of people they open the line, they move in a couple feet, and they're like just, trying to handle the line, or they're not moving fast enough. You got to move, all right? And I'm not saying move to the point where you're not checking the floor in front of you and stuff like that, but you got to move that line.
Yeah.
All right. When the line is stagnant, you're really not doing much unless you're in the fire room. So you have to get to the fire as quickly as possible, because when the water starts splashing off the walls or the door frame or anything else, right, it's turning into little droplets all over the place, especially if you're using a solid bore nozzle, which you should, and then it bounces off and it radiates all over like a sprinkler. And that's the goal, right, is that the more water droplets, right, it's going to produce some steam, but it's also going to absorb that heat. And that's what we're trying to do, is to knock it down. So if I'm going down a hallway and I'm bouncing it off the walls and the ceiling and everything else, and it's hitting the door frames, it's splattering into the rooms, going down into the hallway if those room doors are open, and the fire should knock down pretty quickly. So
Yeah.
but pumping is a serious business. You should understand, all pump operators should really understand the pumps, and not just understand the pumps and be able to flow water into a parking lot, but you got to be able to handle any type of stressful situation that happens.
Yeah, and I was just going to say that the two mistakes that I've seen a few times with pump operators, typically it happens under stress. That first couple of minutes is either they park the rig, or position the rig at a fire and forget to throw it into pump.
Or forget to put it in drive.
Yeah, or they wind up charging the wrong line. Those are the two things that I've seen most common.
Yep. But there's other factors, right?
Oh, for
If you
sure.
don't prime the pump properly and you get air, right, you're not going to flow water. Or you're not paying attention because you're more concerned with the hydrant or something else, or they forget to make sure all the hoses out of the bed before they charge the line. There's so many factors, and I've been a pump operator for a long time, and we would even run guys through paces of problems. Problem, okay? Because that's the big deal. And even when you're coming in second due, third due, if they say they're having a problem with the pumps or getting water, you got to figure it out right away. You got to be a problem solver and figure out why is this truck not pumping water? What's the situation? And then if it goes from there, right, once the water is leaving the truck and going through that line, what's the next problem, right? Kinks, burst lengths, right? Couplings not together properly, right? Things like that. So, or a clog in the lines or a nozzle problem. So, it goes from where the water's coming from the hydrant all the way through the rig, all the way to the line, and you got to figure out all those problems.
And I would say too, to understand the pump as a whole. And one mistake I made was I basically knew, okay, every time we go out to drill, we go to the Class A building, or even just being first due at a fire. I was so used to just the typical, okay, we're hooked up to a hydrant and I'm just going to pull these levers, give them water, and they should be fine with water. And if they tell me it's either too much pressure or too little pressure, I can adjust. We were out of county doing the Class A building, and they had the 3-inch intake coming in. And I'm sitting there, I give them water, and I open up the valve, the intake valve. And I'm sitting there and I'm looking, and my tank's running out of water. Hydrant's on. And I'm sitting there and I call the incident commander. I'm like, hey, I'm having an issue with the hydrant here. And I'm kind of looking around, and finally the chief walks up to the truck, and he's like, what's going on? And I said, I'm like, the valve's not opening. And he came up on the pump panel real quick, took a look, and he goes, dude, he's like, you don't have the valve open. It was because on the panel you have the buttons that open up the valve, this particular truck, but the one intake valve that we were hooked up to actually had that lever on the side of the panel.
External valve.
Yeah, and that
Instead
was
of an internal
that
valve.
was my fuck up. I was so used to just going through the motions of, typical pump operations that I didn't even think to look at that. And granted, thank God it was a training, and that's what we trained for. You want to fuck up in training and not in the real thing. But, that was like a humbling thing to me where I was like, shit, like I feel like an asshole because I'm, calling an urgent on the radio. We're having an issue with the valve not opening. Guys are inside flowing water and I'm losing tank water. I don't have water established. And the chief comes over and it's like, dude, flip this thing up.
Yep.
And I just had to stand on the pump panel feeling like an idiot for the rest of the
Well,
evolution.
there's a lot of things, and you have to, like I said, you have to be a thinking firefighter. We used to say all the time, hook up and look up, right? That's the chauffeur's job. Once you hook up and everything's flowing, you're usually pretty good. Once the pump is in action, there's really not much work to do, but, make sure you have enough water or the water doesn't change, right? Make sure you're not cavitating or pulling too much water, stuff like that. But you're monitoring what's going on. And these trucks now are so electronic with all these pressure governors and everything else, it kind of does all the work for you. But you got to be able to figure out, if this goes bad, how can I get around it, right? Even if the lever on the pump panel doesn't work, can you reach inside and open that same valve from the inside? There's an external valve inside that pump that you could open. There's different things you have to look at, right? Like, for instance, what if your primer doesn't work? Sometimes the primer does not work, right? It's broken or whatever the situation is. How do you get around that situation of a primer being broken? One of the ways is if it's got a deck gun, you'll open the deck gun valve because that's the highest point on your pump, the highest valve, and all the air will go to the top. So now if you engage the pump, usually the water will start to shoot out the deck gun, which primes your pump. It gets all the air out. So, sometimes, we had a rig that we used in the city for a while. The primer was bad. They were waiting on parts. We drove around with the deck gun open all the time and the tank dumped because it constantly gave pressure and it gave water all the way up to the deck gun when we drove around because of the pressure. So it always had air. But as soon as you put the rig into pumps, water would be shooting out the top. You'd have to close that thing off.
So you had both the deck gun open and the tank dump?
Mm-hmm. Yep. We drive around like that. There's a lot of departments out there that drive with the tank dumped all the time. And some of the valves are actually backwards. So
does that act almost like a straw? When you cap the top,
Same
so
idea.
like the water holds in it.
Yeah, same idea. But there are departments out there now where the default is they leave the tank dumped. They actually have the valves actually backwards on a rig. You know how normally you pull it out to dump the tank? They'll have it where in is dump tank and pull out is to shut it off. You can make the rigs that way. And this gets back to a lot about speccing your rig of what works for you or what works for your department is what do I think is the best move? Like, I don't want to leave my tank dumped all the time because once I get positive water, I could still be eating up some of that tank, right? I could use up that water. I want to keep my tank as full as possible. So as soon as I'm on positive water, I want to open that tank fill and keep that full all the way because if I lose the hydrant again, now I have water in my tank. So there is a lot to pump operations. Just because you're a pump operator doesn't mean you're the best pump operator. I would suggest if you're going to go to a seminar or conference, go to a pumping class. There's nothing wrong with learning more, okay? One of the things that I do, I don't train a lot of guys, but when I do take them out from time to time, one of the things I do is I take a plastic bag and I keep it in my pocket. I might have said this before, but I tell the guy hook up to the hydrant. So whichever end they take, whether they want to hook up to the rig or they want to hook up to the hydrant, I say I'll get the other side, and I stuff a garbage bag or a plastic bag in there, and then I hook it up to the rig or hook it up to the hydrant, and then when they turn the water on, that will go right to the strainer and clog it. So I always start them off on tank water. I say, okay, you now got positive water, switch over to positive water, and they'll operate for a couple seconds, and all of a sudden they lose water. Yeah. Why? Because the plastic bag sucks the strainer. And then I say, what happened? Fix the problem. So now they're trying to figure it out. They go back to tank water, right? Now the bag moves in the line again. So now they're filling their tank. The tank's filling up. Everything's good. They go back to positive water again. It locks up again. And now I got to get them to figure it out. So most of the time is I tell them, pull another line off the hydrant. Hook it into your 3-inch. Hook a 3-inch, right? And that's part of the problem. Like a lot of us just go for that 5-inch. You should be dressing a hydrant. You should be putting at least on one of those other spuds, that 2.5. If you're not using the 2.5, put a gate valve on there. Okay? Because if that initial line, that 5-inch, 3-inch, whatever it is, if something goes bad, you can stretch another line off that hydrant and maybe get water.
Right.
Okay? Not always. If the hydrant goes bad, the hydrant goes bad. But it's rare, but it does happen.
It's also a matter, too, of deciding at what point have you looked into all different scenarios as to why you're not getting water, and at what point do you call an urgent and say, hey, I don't have positive water?
Well, you want to tell people. If you're having a problem, people need to know.
Right, that's what I'm saying.
So, if I lose the hydrant and I still got 750 in my booster tank, I'll give an urgent or whatever and say, or not even an urgent, I'll just let them know right away.
Yeah.
Listen, guys, I lost the hydrant. I'm back on booster tank. All right? You got a full tank, or you're at 3/4, or you're at half, or whatever the situation. But let them know what's going on. It's not to the extreme that I totally lost water, but I'm back on booster water. All right? So booster tank, let them know what's going on, or however you say it. We call it a booster tank. But now figure out the problem. If there's another engine close by, can I take their 750 and tie it into my rig? All right? Now I got a lot more water. I got 1,500 gallons, 2 rigs.
Right.
Right? If you have 2 engines there, I got 1,500. That's a lot of water.
Yeah.
I should be able to put out, and I hate to say it, but a shitload of fire with 1,500 gallons with 2 engines, right? So this is all getting into these factors, right? Your calculations of figuring out how much water do I really need for a fire. All right. And, a lot of us out here on the island now, we all went to 5-inch, right? And some departments have 4. I heard there's some departments that are switching back to smaller lines again. But when do I need more water? When do I need less water? And, if I have a big commercial fire, I'm supplying tower ladders and stuff like that, I need a lot of water.
Yeah.
Okay. But for a regular residential, do I really need that much water?
So all that being said, the next submission here is, why is water supply the most overlooked / undertrained basic skill?
Well, I guess that's really to your department or how that's going on, because some of us train a lot in it. Some of us don't train as much. It really depends on your department, your organization. We do a lot of pumping and pump training with people, and, we try to operate different people when we're stretching lines and stuff. I think we should stretch more lines. I don't think we stretch enough. Getting used to stretching line, getting it to the door, even for a smoke call, right? Stretch a dry line to the door. When I was chief, I did that a little bit on some calls, and guys got pissed at me. Why are you making us stretch all the time? This is bullshit. We got to pack hose and this and that. I go, it's practice. Do it on your own time, chief. But you got to get some practice in from time to time if you got people out there. But water is super important, and you have to ensure you have water, and you have to ensure it's everybody's job to get water on that fire. It's the search and rescue guys, it's the truck guys, it's the engine guys. It's everybody's job to get that line in place.
Right. Now, does your department, and I think you've answered this already, but do you guys make it a habit of anytime you pull up to, say, like a house, whether it's CO or something of that nature, automatic alarm, and just simply flush the hydrant that's nearest?
We do, except for in winter months. But
that I can understand.
Yeah. Anytime I pull up to a hydrant, I check it and flush
that
it.
was always a thing we did. The
better you get at it, you should really be doing it. I mean, if it's icing conditions, you shouldn't be doing it. But, when we had the snowstorm, I shovel out hydrants, if we pull up to them. But you should get an engine at a hydrant at some point. I don't have a problem if you're carrying 750 for the first engine to go straight in, as long as there's a second dude that can stretch a line to you. The hydrants in my district are about 800 feet apart. So realistically, in any direction, I shouldn't be more than 400 feet from a hydrant.
Right,
400 to 500 feet, because they're between 800 and 900 feet apart. But, it just depends on your jurisdiction. There's a lot of departments that don't even have hydrants. They run 1,000 gallons on their engines. Sometimes they run a tanker, and they have rural water supply, right? They're going to set up a shuttle system or whatever they're going to do to ensure they have positive water supply in some way, fashion, or form.
Right.
But it should be trained on more. I think, pumping and going through paces. And even if you've been a chauffeur for a while, go through situations and problems. You got to be an expert, not only at the pump, but the emergencies and the problems. Mm-hmm. You got to be able to think on your feet and figure it out quickly.
Right. Yeah, I mean, you're the lifeline, basically, for the guys that are inside if you can't get water to them.
But you got to get enough water, and that's the big thing. Whether you pass hydrants, don't pass I don't know what your department does or how you shuttle your water or whatever you do, but you should be training in it on a regular basis.
Speaking of training, the next submission we have here is, does live burn training actually prepare new firefighters for the real thing?
No.
I was curious to hear your answer on that.
We do the best we can. Unfortunately, it is very, very hard to recreate the conditions that you're going to deal with out in the field. So, as instructors, I think we have some of the best academies around, National and Suffolk here, even New York City, and we do our best, but there's only so much we can do. And NFPA 1403 is very clear in what the rules of engagement are when we're dealing with acquired structures and burnt buildings. It's very, very, very severe. And if you deviate from that and something happens, you're going to get called on the carpet. And it's unfortunate because we should be, I believe, operating buildings that are going to be very similar to what we're going to deal with.
Yeah.
And what do I mean by that? And I know we're not allowed to do it, but furnishings, right? We're searching rooms with nothing in them. That's not reality.
Yeah.
Right? It's not reality. It's not reality that there's no curtains on the windows or roll down shades that you're going to have to get through in order to get into that building. It's not, we don't have them. Right? So, when we go to these buildings, right, fires, start in a corner and they work their way up the wall and shoot across the room and roll over and everything. You can't create that in a burn building.
Yeah, it's really,
we have to burn in the center of the room or a specific spot so that we don't have spalling or we don't have, the building falling apart or doing damage to the structure. There's so many factors that go into it. Plus, what we're burning is hay and pallets. It's not a couch. It's not a bed. It's not, it's not a carpet, right? That the furnishings that we deal with in a regular fire produce overwhelming heat, smoke, rollover, flashover, everything else that you can think of, and we cannot create that in a burn building.
Right. Well,
we could, but they won't let us.
Well, except for things like the flashover simulator. Stuff like that. Like,
yeah,
you can't do that in the actual burn building where you're doing an actual evolution. But that's why
it would be nice if we could do that down a hallway or something.
That's why county has that separate station there, which is like, hey, we're doing a burn building flashover simulator. That was always when that class came up. It was always, if you have not been to the flashover simulator, you got to go.
It is a great thing, but reality is you're not going to be sitting on a floor watching something flash over your head, right? And, we tell the students and we reiterate, you start seeing this rollover, you should be leaving. And, but how many of them are really taking that in and saying, I shouldn't be here right now?
Yeah, because like you just said, you're sitting there
watching and going, oh, this is really neat. I mean, it's great training. It's great to see what that is. But is it really comprehending in a young recruit's head that this is bad and I shouldn't be here?
Exactly.
Right? And that's part of the problem. Like even with these burn buildings, I think we get overwhelmed to the point where we say, oh, it's going to be like this, it's going to be like that. And they go, oh, I felt heat. I've been to a fire or two, blah, 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 blah. Until you really feel heat, you don't know what heat feels like. I'm telling you, I've been there. All right? I've been on fire. I know what it feels like. It's not a comfortable feeling.
Yeah.
Right? So, when people say, oh, I felt heat or I know what heat is, I'm like, you haven't felt shit.
Yeah, because you look at it like you mentioned, the furnishings in the houses, couches, furniture, curtains, all that stuff that burns so fucking hot that it is not going to compare to a pile of hay on top of some pallets.
I mean, we can get the buildings pretty hot, especially, on the second burn. It usually gets a little hotter, like the flashover simulators. The second burn gets a little hotter. But, until you experience that in real life of what it is, when you're pushing down a hallway and the fire's blow torching down the hall at you because it's wind driven or whatever the situation is, or whatever's burning down there, it's a whole different battle.
Yeah, like where it makes you like wince almost. You're like I feel that.
Yep.
Like that shit hurts,
And I'm not saying you should feel heat like that. Like,
Right.
realistically, if you're starting to feel heat through your gear and stuff, you should be out of there.
Exactly.
Don't go any further. But, it's just, it takes a lot to be a firefighter and feel real heat and understand what it is. If it gets to that point, we've already gone too far. But sometimes when you have a hose line and you're working down a hallway, right, the water could be basically boiling in the hallway where you can't even crawl anymore because it's that hot, and I went to some pretty good fires in project buildings, and they're concrete buildings. Like, you have a severe fire in those buildings, you're going to feel heat.
Yeah.
Like, it's radiating off the walls, it's coming down the hallway at you. It's a whole different feeling.
Yeah, so I mean, to this question, I would say it's really kind of a double-edged sword, because you can't just do evolutions where it's just, all right, we're going to throw the hood over your mask and make you blacked out, and then you're going to walk and search and stretch hose that way, because they're not really getting that full experience. But at the same time, live burn training still isn't giving you that full experience, but it's giving you some taste
Listen,
of, okay,
it's giving you a feeling of what it's going to be like. I mean, but, like when you look at a burn building, right, and I think our instructors do a phenomenal job to get it to be as best they can. But reality is, right, when you're actually fighting a fire, a real fire, and you're out there, it takes a little bit with the hose line to get that fire to knock down, right? When you go in there, right, the pallets have been burning and the hay's all burnt out. By the time you get to it, sometimes it's already half burnt out. And now you hit it with the line, 1-2 sweep, and it's out.
Yeah.
Like, it's over, right? That's not going to happen in a real burn. You're in a home on fire or a commercial building. You could be in there whipping that thing around for a while and trying to fight your way to get to where the seat of the fire is. And even when you get to it, it could still be burning underneath and everything else, right? So once you go to some real fires and you start seeing what it's really like, you say, well, it's really not like the burn building. Now, sometimes that's the only training we can get. You do the best with it. I love going out to the burn buildings out there.
Yeah.
When my department goes, if I can go more than once, I go. We require all our members to go at least once a year.
Right.
To an actual burn, right? Not the other stuff. An actual burn in a building. But, if you can go more than once, you can go to twice or 3 times, you should do it.
Yeah.
Get the experience of getting off the rig in a position, taking your position, and going to where you need to be, right? That's the important part.
Yeah, and like you were saying too, with the going into a burn building where it's just the middle of the room with the hay and the pallets burning, you just go in there, you start sweeping, it's out. One of the things that I was taught when I first joined was you're sweeping the ceiling to cool off the gases, and then you're hitting the floor. The floor is to push anything that's big away from you, and also to make sure there is a floor.
It's that, and also because you don't know what's on the floor, right? And back in the day in the city, in the South Bronx, there were needles and stuff like that, and knives and shit. There was crap all over the floor. But you're also going to have hot water coming back at you, right?
Yeah.
It's steam. So like even with these hallways, you kind of want to whip it around, and every once in a while you want to make sure you sweep that floor in front of you to push all that hot water back away from you, or get some cool water down in there to hopefully cool it down. And, it's not always going to be that hot, and it's not always going to be that bad, but you want to make sure there's a floor below you. You want to hear it bouncing off the walls. You want to know what's there, because sometimes you can't see it. I mean, with thermal imaging cameras, it gives us a little more insight. We can see a little more. We can do a little more. But you still want to make sure you're moving that line all the way around. However you're going to do it, You want to bounce it off as much as possible so it's coming up from all directions and it's cooling that environment. But, there's been a couple fires where we were down on our knees moving in, and next thing you know, your knees are burning because of the hot water.
Yeah.
And now, next thing you know, I'm like squatting as we're moving forward
Yeah.
because I don't want to burn my knees up, So, you got to pay attention to what's going on around you. And when you're really fighting fire and you're feeling heat, sometimes you don't even realize it. You're getting burned.
Yeah,
You're getting burned right through you get it on your hands, you get it on your face, sometimes even your knees when you're crawling in there. You don't even really feel it until after. And then all of a sudden you're like, oh man, my knees hurt. And you're like, oh shit, they're blistered.
Yeah.
It happens.
The next one here is multi-generational members, the good and the bad. So families being in the fire service.
Yep.
I think there's two sides to it.
There's two sides to everything. My dad was a firefighter. That's one of the reasons why I joined. And a lot of that happens in the fire service, where it's usually people or family members and stuff like that. And they tell you what a great job it is. You got to take this job. You look at New York City, there's many legacy firefighters right now where their dad was killed on 9/11,
Yep.
and now either the son or the daughter are now firefighters, right? They've come up, and I know a few of them that have come up and made their way and finally made it onto the job, which is great. It's great to see. But, I wouldn't have known much about the fire department if it wasn't for my dad. My dad joined in 1973, and I was 3 years old, and, I didn't know much then, but I knew my dad was a fireman. That's all I knew. And then as you grow up and you get older, you start learning more about it. You go into the parades, you're hanging out in the firehouse, and I was like, this is pretty cool. I like this. So, as soon as I was 14 years old, I was able to join the juniors. I joined the juniors, and I wound up being a secretary, a lieutenant, a captain of the juniors. I enjoyed going down the firehouse and hanging out, and, we would train and we would do things. We'd have our meetings, and, we helped the fire department wherever we could, but we couldn't go to fires. So we buff them on our bicycles, like there's a big brush fire, you go, and you see all these guys going in and out. I'm like, this is really cool. I want to do this. So when I was 18, I was able to join the department. And then I met, I knew some of the guys were city firemen, but I didn't know it was like a paid job. Like, when I was a kid, I didn't think much about it. And then, guys were like, yo, you got to take the police test. You got to take the fire test. You got to take the sanitation test, And then Joey D joined a little over a year after I joined. And then we started buffing the city firehouses and shit. And
Right.
he's like, oh, we got to get on this job, man. Me and you, like this and that. And, we took the test and, I got hired. I took the police test. I got hired, became a cop. I took the fire test. I got hired on the fire department. I'm 2 for 2.
Still got the cop haircut.
I still got the cop haircut. But I loved it. I enjoyed it. But the volunteer system is what got me into the fire service, which made me want to be a career firefighter. And it's all I've ever wanted to do.
So your story, more so a success story with that type of thing.
Yeah,
Then you have the other, like,
correct.
the families that run the roost. There's plenty of that in the fire service.
Yeah, well, you have a lot of families, especially in the volunteer fire service, right? The husband's involved, the wife's involved, the uncles are involved, the sons, the daughters are involved, right? Everybody's involved. And in some ways it can be very positive, and other ways it could be negative, because, you can have some nepotism, and it happens. We've had, husband and wife or husband and family member stealing money, financials, right? There's all different avenues where, my son couldn't do anything wrong. He's not suspended, and we've seen that, right? So there's good and bad to everything, and you should hold your own. And even when my friends and stuff got in trouble, sometimes you have to look at it and say, I don't want to hear names. It's firefighter A did fire and firefighter B. What happened? And then figure it out,
Right.
And then, you can manipulate a little without going over the top, right? You can't go outlandishly and just say, oh, they're a good guy, just let them go. You can't do that all the time either, right? Sometimes there has to be some sort of discipline, right? Whatever it is, whether it's a letter in the file, something, a warning or some sort of reprimand, even, face to face, whatever it is, there should be something. You can't just let everything go, Because then they say, well, you let him go. Why is this person suspended? Or why is this person being thrown out? You can't have it.
I like your idea of somebody comes up to you with a problem, don't give me names. I just want firefighter A, firefighter B.
Yeah, that's it. Like simple. Because, that's where you start getting into the nepotism and the problems. It's somebody I like. It's a friend, right? It's my girlfriend, a boyfriend, or whatever. Whatever the situation is, you're going to try to be nice to that person because you're friendly with them.
Right.
Or you don't want to hurt somebody's feelings. I get it. Listen, don't put me in a bad position that I have to do something. That's the way you got to look at it. Whether you're a lieutenant, a captain, a chief, or whatever, commissioner, doesn't matter. That person puts you in that situation that now you have to make a decision. Mm-hmm. And it's unfortunate. And if you screw up, you know what? Sometimes take it. Just take it.
Yeah.
It happens, right? But you can't have nepotism. You can't have problems. So there are departments where, it's family, the family runs it. And sometimes people get pissed off and they say, I don't want to deal with these people.
Right, yeah.
And you don't want that either, right? We're all in this together. We should look at this as a group to better the fire service, to better our department, better our company, better our organization. That's the way you have to look at everything.
Absolutely. And the last quick thing here is fire department sirens going off 24/7.
Yeah, well, it really depends on your jurisdiction, location.
I feel like most places stopped doing the midnight, like from usually, I don't know, maybe it all depends on the department. But I remember when I was a dispatcher, we had the list of all the departments, and it would say no sirens from say 9 o'clock at night until 8 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah, but here's the thing, and you can look at this any way you want, right? We had neighbors complaining about the siren. We stopped using the siren, right? You guys all have phones. You all have radios. You all have this and that and all this technology and everything else. Well, guess what? Verizon went down and nobody had any phones, right? And that's the way you have to look at everything. There's always got to be a backup.
Yeah.
It's going to cost a couple dollars here and there.
We've definitely talked
You
about this
still
before.
need to have sirens. You still need to have backup systems, okay? You cannot put all your apples and oranges in one bucket, okay? Because if you do that, you are going to fail, all right? And, you even look at this with firehouses, right? My department, we have 3 stations, which is good. They all have fire alarms. They all have sprinkler systems, okay? Even if something were to go wrong in one station, we still have 2 other stations. And you have a lot of departments across this country. It's a single house. Everything is in one place. And some of them don't have fire alarms. They don't have burglar alarms. They don't have sprinkler systems. They don't have anything. You have one fire. You wipe out all your emergency responses in one shot. And you got to start thinking this way. You got to have something as a backup or a safety. A sprinkler system is a safety. It's a backup. Right? You're not going to burn your whole building down, hopefully.
Right.
Right? Fire alarm, initial or quick activation that you're going to know something's going on. This stuff costs money. I get it. But you got to have something. You got to have a backup. Okay? So figure that out. And, I know nobody wants more taxes. Nobody wants to spend more on Long Island. But there has to be some sort of backup. And I'm not saying go crazy. Like everybody thinks they need everything in their district, and you don't. Work out mutual aid agreements. Work out with your partners and neighbors. Hey, we got this. You have this, or you got that. Right? Kind of what we do with tech rescue right now.
Right.
Right. There's some departments have tech rescue. Not every department. So we don't have to spend an absorbent amount of money or cost, especially if you're a very small district, when you have somebody that's very close by that can help you out.
The fuck does that have to do with sirens?
I'm just saying backup systems.
You went around the block on
There's
that
nothing
one.
wrong with doing that. But, but getting back to sirens, which I was coming back to anyway.
Right. My bad.
But we're talking about backup systems and everything. But sirens, it depends on your location and your authority. There's some places where they have very bad communication, especially rural America, or maybe they want people to know what's going on. Does it need to be in the most populated community and running all day and all night? Maybe not anymore, okay? But if you're not getting a response, maybe the radios aren't working properly or something's happening. Maybe you do need to hit the sirens all night.
Yeah, I think that
depends on the situation.
That was what was on the list up in dispatch was these are the scenarios that you're going to make the siren go off in the middle of the night. Usually a working fire. And then also during hours of where there's a lot of cars on the road.
Oh, it just goes off at
Sirens.
12 noon. That's it now.
Yeah, no, there's a lot of departments still do that. And that's the same shit with like the church bells going off. But also just to let people know, hey, a siren's going off, probably going to be some fire trucks in the area. Keep your head on a swivel.
Well, how about this one? This happened in my department many, many years ago. The dispatcher was chewing on a pen cap, got it lodged in his throat, and couldn't talk. Hit the tones, no voice. Hit the tones again, hit the sirens. Everybody's like, what the hell's going on? They go there, he's choking on a friggin' pen
Just
cap.
breathing through those 3 little holes that are at the top
That
of
was
the pen
before
cap.
the 3 little holes. That's why
Oh,
they did it. That's
shit.
one of the reasons, because people were choking on these things. But think about that, right? I mean, you have nobody. Like, could you have a button in there to say, bang out a call, I'm in a emergency,
Right.
or an automatic message, like some of these things, like, our AEDs in the firehouse. If you open the AED, it automatically transmits tones that an AED has been dislodged in the firehouse.
Oh, boy.
Yeah.
I guess it makes sense, but you get 2 idiots fucking around.
Well,
knock the thing open.
it goes, for us, we have it set up, it goes over one of our backup frequencies.
Okay.
So only the dispatcher hears it. So if I'm at my station and I pull that door open, it'll activate, my dispatcher will hear it, and then they'll be calling the firehouse, like, what's going on?
Got it.
So, like, if we're testing or checking the AEDs, we have to call and say, hey, we're gonna open the door.
Right.
But, you got to have a way to transmit when things go wrong. What happens if your dispatcher goes down? Do you have a backup system? Just think about that.
Well, I think that wraps
That's a
up
wrap. Nothing good.
episode 62. We'll catch you guys next week.
Sounds good.